Her name was Emily, but no one really heard it much in class. She was quiet, too quiet, really. The kind of quiet that made people wonder if she was even there. She sat in the back row, near the window, with her head down, her long brown hair always falling over her face. Emily was a seventh grader at Greenwood Middle School, just like everyone else, but she felt like she was on the outside of everything. She never raised her hand, never volunteered to read, and definitely never spoke unless she absolutely had to. She used to be different. When she was younger, Emily had a bright, bubbly voice that could fill a room. But after the car accident, after losing her mom and almost losing her own life, that part of Emily had faded away. It wasn't something she talked about, and no one really asked. Her teacher, Miss Walker, had noticed it. She could tell Emily was hiding behind her silence, as if the words were trapped somewhere inside her. Miss Walker had tried everything, smiling at Emily, giving her encouraging looks, even gently asking her to participate. But Emily always shook her head, her eyes dropping to the desk, as if the weight of the world was too much for her to bear. But something was different today. Today, Miss Walker had a new idea. What no one knew was that today, Emily's world would change. It wasn't going to be a big dramatic event, but it was going to be enough. It all started with a simple note passed to Miss Walker in the middle of the school day. The note had a picture of a dog on it, and a few simple words written in neat handwriting. Meet Rosie. Miss Walker had heard the rumors. There were whispers among the teachers about a therapy dog that might be coming to the school to help students who had been through difficult times. Rosie, the therapy dog, had been specially trained to help children like Emily, children who had experienced trauma and were finding it hard to speak, to trust, to open up. At first, Miss Walker wasn't sure what to expect. Could a dog really make a difference? But when Rosie came into the classroom later that morning, it was clear that something magical was happening. The dog, a golden retriever with kind eyes, trotted into the room with a calm energy that seemed to settle over everyone. Rosie's handler, a woman named Mrs. Thompson, smiled at the class. "This is Rosie. She's here to help you feel safe, to listen if you need her, and to give you the space you need to heal." The moment Rosie sat at Emily's desk, something inside Emily seemed to shift. She didn't pull away. She didn't hide. Instead, she looked at the dog, with eyes that softened just a little. Miss Walker watched quietly from the front of the class, hopeful but unsure. Emily had always been closed off, but maybe, just maybe, Rosie could help her open up again. The next few days would show whether this was just another attempt at a breakthrough or something truly life-changing. The next day, Rosie was back in class. She walked around the room as students sat at their desks, letting them pet her if they wanted to. But Emily, still sitting in the back, only glanced at the dog occasionally. She didn't reach out, she didn't speak, but there was something in the way she looked at Rosie that made Miss Walker hopeful. Days passed, and every day, Rosie was there. Emily would sit quietly, her hands clasped on her desk, but she didn't shy away from the dog anymore. Every once in a while, she'd look up at Rosie, and that little spark of recognition would flash in her eyes. Then one day, near the end of the week, something unexpected happened. It was reading time. Miss Walker always gave the students a chance to read aloud, and that was when Emily usually shut down. But that day, Emily didn't look away when Miss Walker asked, "Who would like to read next?" Instead, Emily slowly lifted her hand. Miss Walker's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure if she had seen it right. Emily had never volunteered before. "Emily," Miss Walker said gently, trying not to show how surprised she was. Emily's face was flushed, and she didn't look at anyone. She looked down at the book in front of her, her fingers trembling slightly. Then softly, almost to herself, Emily began to read. Her voice was shaky at first, but the words came out. Her eyes never left the page, but there was something in her voice, something strong enough to make the whole class stop and listen. For the first time in what felt like forever, Emily spoke. The moment wasn't just a small victory, it was a sign that something even more powerful was about to happen. The classroom was quiet, every student was watching Emily, but not in a way that made her feel pressured. They were all rooting for her, hoping she would keep going, and Emily did. She paused for a moment, glancing at Rosie, who was sitting by her side, looking up at her with kind eyes. It was as though the dog knew the words were hard, knew how long Emily had struggled to find her voice. Emily took a deep breath. The words came more easily now, and with each sentence, she seemed to grow more confident. She read a few more lines, then stopped. Her fingers relaxed, and she looked up at the class for the first time. A moment of silence passed before someone clapped. It was Tyler, the boy who always sat in the front row and had a tendency to tease. But today, his face was bright with genuine admiration. Then came another clap, and another. Soon the whole class was clapping. Emily's face flushed a deep red, but it wasn't from embarrassment. It was from something else, a feeling she hadn't had in a long time. It was pride. And there, in that classroom, in that small but powerful moment, Emily felt something stir inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt seen, she felt heard. The healing had begun, but there was still one more step for Emily to take, one last hurdle she needed to overcome to fully open her heart. The truth was, Emily had never stopped talking to herself. She had spent so many months holding everything inside, trying to protect herself from the pain of losing her mom, from the fear that she might be forgotten or overlooked. She hadn't been able to speak because she didn't know how to deal with the weight of what had happened. But Rosie had given her a safe space, a space where Emily could start to feel the healing process. The dog didn't ask her to talk, didn't push her. She just sat quietly, offering a kind, non-judgmental presence that allowed Emily to begin to trust again. And when Emily read aloud for the first time, it wasn't just about the words on the page. It was about her learning to trust the world again, about finding her voice, and realizing that people cared. From that day forward, things began to change, not just for Emily, but for everyone who saw what had happened. The days after Emily read aloud were full of quiet victories. She spoke up more often in class, even if it was just to answer a question or comment on something the class was learning. Her classmates noticed. They treated her differently now, not with pity, but with respect. And every day, Rosie was there, by Emily's side. Sometimes the dog would rest her head on Emily's lap during reading time, and sometimes, Emily would talk to her quietly, as if sharing the things she didn't know how to say out loud. By the end of the semester, Emily had come so far. She wasn't the same quiet girl who had walked into that classroom months ago. She had found her voice, and she wasn't afraid to use it anymore. And it wasn't just Rosie who had helped her. It was the kindness of the people around her, the gentle support that had allowed her to feel safe enough to begin healing. Emily knew now that she wasn't alone, and that made all the difference. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.